Hello Colorado Springs and welcome to Channel 13 News. Today we are covering a potential new product that is very controversial. Here to discuss this topic are two experts in the field, Doctors Courtney and Amber Galick.
Thank you, Cindy. I'm Dr. Amber Galick and this is Dr. Courtney Harrell, and we're here to discuss with you the pros and cons of a possible new product called Grow a Clone.
Grow a Clone would provide a way for customers to have a clone of themselves. They would simply take the Grow a Clone, make a sample of their DNA, and put it on the Grow a Clone. 9 months later, they would have a baby that's an exact clone of themselves. This product would be very beneficial to society in general. Did you know that according to Mr. Zavos, over 15% of couples watching right now are affected by infertility? And even more of you have some kind of hereditary disease that you would risk passing on to a child were you to reproduce. This means that many of you are wanting a child and have no way to do it. You can't turn to in vitro fertilization or adoption because you want a child that's genetically related to you and don't want to introduce anyone else's genes to the child. This means that Grow a Clone is the only answer for you. Besides that, Nussbaum tells us that Grow a Clone could lead to important advances in medical knowledge that could solve diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, diabetes, and even cancer. Besides that, Grow a Clone would provide healthy new heart cells that could solve heart disease, the #1 killer in the United States today. Most importantly, Grow a Clone would provide cloned organs that could be used for organ transplants. Currently, organ transplants are very hard because it's hard to find an organ that is genetically compatible with the patient and that won't be rejected by the patient's immune system. With Grow a Clone, neither of these will be an issue, and the chance of the organ matching will go from a mere 25% to nearly 100%. How could anyone reject a product that is obviously so beneficial?
Or how could anyone accept a product that is so dangerous and emotionally damaging to the child? Cloning is over 90% unsuccessful, according to the Human Genome Project's website. Cloned fetuses are 10 times more likely to die in utero and 3 times more likely to die soon after birth than children conceived by normal means, according to Dr. Ian Wilmut. Imagine the heartbreak and helplessness that would be caused by so many tries and failures of conceiving a child. More often than not, Grow a Clone would result in failure and emotional devastation. Besides this, it is extremely expensive and you would probably have to pay out of pocket because healthcare benefits would not provide funding for Grow a Clone since it is such a new product and it's very controversial. And there's absolutely no guarantee that it's going to work, so why would you invest so much money into something that you don't even know if it's going to create a child for you? In the rare cases of Grow a Clone success, there will be a high likelihood of developmental defects. As Klosko points out, some scientists still maintain that every clone is somehow defective according to animal research. And Kilner notes that cloning for organ donations fails to respect the equal and great dignity of all people by making some, in effect, the slaves of others. So therefore, cloning to create organ donors is not a good enough reason to pass Grow a Clone. Clones would have a great issue in achieving a sense of individuality because they have to live their lives knowing that somebody else has already lived practically the same life because they have the same DNA as they do. Cloning would also complicate family dynamics and relationships. One side of the clone's family will be necessarily excluded, according to Doctors Cass and Wilson. Furthermore, the relationship between the clone and the grandparents on the side of the parent that they were cloned from would span 1 and 2 generations at once, according to the President's Council on Bioethics. How would this complicate the relationship between the clone and the clone's grandparents when the clone's grandparents are technically their genetic parents? Even more worrisome, what would happen in the event of a divorce? How would the court decide which parent gets custody of the child? Would it be the parent that can care best for the child or the parent that bears a genetic tie to the child? And what happens if the child goes to the parent that does not bear a genetic tie to itself? The child would constantly be a reminder of the failed marriage between his or her parents, which would shame the child, and it would be difficult for the parent to move on. So, why would anyone choose to clone when in the very fact of the process would result in a difficult and probably even agonizing life for the resulting child?
Dr. Gaelic is right. The safety of the clone must be considered. However, any information concerning animal cloning is not relevant in this argument because there is no proof that safety problems in animal cloning would be the same in human cloning. In fact, Zavos tells us that human cloning may actually be easier because humans possess a genetic factor that prevents fetal overgrowth, one of the main problems with animal cloning. There is some risk to the human clone. For instance, it may fail to grow and develop properly, but Nussbaum tells us that this would involve the destruction of the clone long before the government or the majority of the public considers it to be a human. Once the clone is born safely, if the child was born to save another life, to provide an organ, or to solve some kind of disease, the child would not be bothered by this fact. For one thing, there is no reason that the child would have to know that they were born for this purpose, and what the child doesn't know won't hurt them. Even if the child did know, they wouldn't care, which has been proven by families who have already tried this strategy, such as Nussbaum tells us, the Eilis family, who had a daughter in order to find a genetically compatible source of bone marrow to save their child dying of leukemia. These clones would certainly be individuals. Cohen reminds us that individuality is made of more than just genetic makeup. Everyone is individuals because of the environment they are raised in, their personality, and the choices that they make. For example, twins are nature's clones. Twins have the exact same genetics, but grow up to be different people with different choices, different personalities, and different lives. If twins are not exact copies of each other, even though they are raised in the same environment, clones certainly would not be. Yes, clones may have some awkward family situations and would not have traditional parent-child relationships, but since they are individuals, they would not be a strange reminder to the parent of a divorce or cause any other sort of family problems. Any arguments against cloning are not strong enough to prevent the use of grow-a-clone.
As Dr. Harrell points out, the Eilis family had another baby daughter in order to save their current daughter's life. And while that new baby daughter was not necessarily affected by this is a completely different situation than cloning to create another human life. Although with cloning, the organs would be exactly compatible, and there's no doubt about that. So in this case, the family that chose cloning as a means of organ donation would not even have to consider whether they would love the child anyway. The Eilis family had to consider this. There was absolutely no guarantee that the bone marrow from their new child would be compatible for their current daughter that was dying of leukemia. So they had to consider what would happen if the bone marrow wasn't compatible. Would they love the child anyway? The answer was yes. So they decided to have another child, and it was successful. However, parents that decide to clone their current child in order to have an organ would not have to consider this because they know that the organ donation would be exactly compatible. As you can see, grow-a-clone would create more problems than it would cause, and it is unethical.
Thank you, doctors. Now that you have heard both sides of this issue, please call 1-800-GROW-A-CLONE and cast your vote. Vote side A to support a solution to medical and reproductive problems, or vote side B if you believe the product is unethical. We need your help, America. Please vote now.